to quote you said women were subordinate to men in regards to making decisions when married. And so I was curious on this. It sounds like you kind of disagree with this sort of sentiment. I guess maybe a jumping off point, and we can get into more broad general conversations related to that. Does anybody kind of agree with her when it comes to like, should women be subordinate to men when married?
Ask Kanye West. Didn't he just show us that's like being subordinate, right?
What?
His naked wife on the Grammy red carpet, she submitted to him to do that.
Allegedly, that's her idea. Like she really enjoys being naked, from what I hear.
Pre Kanye West, there was not a lot that was stopping that woman from taking her clothes off, or anybody who she could take them off for a camera. So just pointing that out.
I think subordinate's an interesting word. I do believe that men should be the leader in most situations and relationships. But when I look at marriage specifically, it's I hate the word partner because it's like so co-opted, but you're supposed to be complementary to each other, right? Like we bring out the best and we demand the best out of each other. So I think women are a really good soundboard for men, and like the best relationships, they take advice from each other. But I do think that there needs to be a leader in the relationship, and it typically should be the man.
Does anybody agree with that?
I agree with that.
Or do you guys think...
I don't know what the S word means.
Subordinate?
Yeah. Submissive, basically coming underneath,
like
deferring
deference,
would be.
I guess you could say. But does anybody here?
Yeah, just subordination would be an underling. So, like if you're at you go to work, right? You got a boss. He's the boss. You're the subordinate.
Thank you.
So, who agrees with Candace? Like, should the man be the leader, or do you guys view things more 50-50?
Well, my boyfriend.
Here, why don't we just go around the table? Okay, we'll start with you. What do you think?
So, I think it depends on the relationship. I think that some women can lead well and some men can. I remember last time I was saying that in my own relationship, I like it to be traditional, but I support other women, having the choice to be in a complementarian relationship or an egalitarian relationship. And I think the live chat, because I can't see it now, but last time I was here on the live chat, they kept saying that I wanted the good parts of feminism for myself, and I was trying to promote the bad, quote-unquote, bad parts to the rest of the female population. But that's not the case. It's just like how I have respect for people who are of a different religion than me, then that doesn't mean that I'm contradicting myself. I respect their right to make that choice to believe in what they do.
What's the nature of your relationship?
Well, I'm kind of like stay at home, and he is the breadwinner.
Sure. Going around the table, what about you?
I also think that when I think of a man, I think of someone masculine that kind of takes care of you, in a sense, more traditional. I definitely am a little more outspoken, so if we can banter back and forth and do things like that and have a say in what we're doing together, it's better. But for the most part, I think that a man should lead and be more masculine and just take care of you.
Sure. What about you?
It's a tricky question. I think it's all circumstantial, and every individual relationships are different. And
how do you want your relationship to be?
My relationship, I'm here on this podcast, and my boyfriend was not down. So, like, but also, like, I paid for it all myself. So unless, like, you know, he was paying all the bills and stuff, maybe, like, I would consider not coming onto the podcast. But since it's 50-50, then, like, I can kind of do what I want.
Okay. What about you, Carly?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the maturity levels of each partner. But personally, I think that everybody kind of has to have their own independence within a relationship, like, just in terms of, like, everyone has their responsibilities and, like, but it really does just depend on the relationship and, like, how each person is.
Once we go around, I'm going to ask, like, a really specific question. I think that will kind of get to the heart of the issue. What about you, though?
Yes, I agree, except again, there's so many caveats because there's all this pressure on men to, be the leader, but men don't even know themselves. So you're asking them to do something they don't know how to do and they haven't been taught to do. So this is why we get into all of the mix of the problems of what you see in a relationship. If the woman doesn't want to follow the lead because the lead doesn't know how to lead, and then she can't trust the lead, and then it's a shit show.
Sure. Lily?
I think it's really circumstantial, but in my personal relationship, I would like a 50-50.
50-50. Carly, it looked like you want to jump in really quick, or?
I was just saying that, like, I like totally agree with that.
Agree with it. Got it. I think you already kind of talked about it. Who gets final say? So in a relationship or marriage, whatever, let's say there's some sort of impasse. There is no resolution. You can't come, you want one thing, he wants the other. Who should get final say?
Whoever pays.
Hold on. So, and I think Andrew, sometimes you refer to this as a threshold breaker, I think, but who do you think gets final say? Or would you, I guess, either in your own dynamics, who should get final say? What do you think? Starting with you, Ayla.
Like, it depends on the thing. I'm confused.
Sure.
Like, if you're disagreeing over, like, where should we move?
Sure.
I don't know, probably you should bet on it, or, like, see who would want to pay more given that you had the money. Or make prediction markets to figure out. I don't know. I don't think I operate by these norms, but I know a lot of people do.
Sure. What do you think?
I think it's going to depend on the situation. Obviously, you have to respect the person that you're with. So to do something that is going to damage the relationship or blatantly disrespect the other person's not going to end up, you're not going to end up with a thriving relationship. But it's like nothing's without consequence at the same time. So it's trusting your gut. Like if you trust your husband fully and he's like, this is a terrible idea, maybe consider the option that you were wrong and that he's right, and vice versa. So if you're telling him not to do something, and this happens a lot, if you talk to anyone in business, the wife will be like, that person had a really sketchy feeling, I don't think that this investment is good. The dude ignores the woman's intuition and then the thing just like crumbles, right? So it's looking at the history of the relationship too. It's like, how often has he been right about this thing and you've been wrong, and vice versa.
Andrew, if I have you jump in really quick, do you want to provide like maybe a good example of like a impasse sort of situation that could arise in like a relationship or marriage, just for use as an example here?
Well, I mean, a very common one is just money. So the idea of how money is used or spent in a relationship versus not spent in a relationship is one of the number one disagreements that men and women have. So the idea is, if you can't come to an agreement on how money is spent or what school the kid should go to, which might infer spending money as well, right? Ultimately, there's only two of you, right? So either a third party has to break this threshold barrier, or one of you ultimately has to be the decider. Otherwise, how do you essentially how do you come to an agreement if both of you disagree? Like how is that done if one person ultimately doesn't end up with the final say?
I don't think one person holds that position permanently. So, and then it's also going to be who acts on it first. So typically women are the ones that set all of the appointments, pay the school tuition if they're going to a private school, set up the doctor's appointments. They make 60 to 80% of all of the household purchases. So if you're just looking at behavior, you'd say women are, but that could be the man saying no and they're just making that decision anyways. So
I'm not really sure that any of that would matter though. So I understand
well,
what
it's
you're saying.
what's being acted on right now, right? So like whether or not that's right or that's helpful for a healthy relationship, like that's a whole different conversation. But what is happening is women are.
Right, I'm not sure it's actually pertinent to what I'm saying though. So I understand what your position is. You're saying, hey, look, women already have lots of household responsibilities, and so they're in a decision-making role already. We're not really discussing that though.
No, I'm saying that they're actually executing the decision already.
Yeah, well, they're executing the decision at the behest of the husband, though. That right? So this is the consent of the husband. Essentially, is going into this decision-making meeting. She's doing the day-to-day activities because he's saying you should do these day-to-day activities. Right? He doesn't have any disagreement with that. It's when there's disagreement within that, who becomes the arbiter? Then how do we find this threshold breaker between two people for who makes the determination or who has the ultimate say?
Again, I don't think anyone holds that permanently, so it's trusting your partner. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. Well, okay, if they don't hold it permanently, right? But let's say the man considers himself to be in the position of authority and has been in the position of authority, right? This still doesn't really get to the heart of the question of if there's a disagreement and they can't reconcile it. You say, well, the man doesn't hold that permanently. It's like, okay, great. But what I'm saying is when you can't reconcile the disagreement, you both disagree, who gets to ultimately make the decision? Whether you think that it's a permanent basis for a man to be in control of it or not, I'm not even sure that's relevant, really.